That's just how white folks will do you. It wasn't merely the cruelty involved. I was learning that black people could be mean and then some. It was a particular brand of arrogance, an obtuseness in otherwise sane people that brought forth our bitter laughter. It was as if whites didn't know they were being cruel in the first place, or at least thought you deserving of their scorn. White folks.
Senator Obama, I want to begin by asking you about Don Imus. You have condemned his remarks about the women's basketball team at Rutgers. Let me ask you pointedly, do you think he should be fired?
I don't think MSNBC should be carrying the kinds of hateful remarks that Imus uttered the other day.
Ray assured me that we would never talk about whites, as whites, in front of whites, without knowing exactly what we were doing, without knowing that there might be a price to pay.
The polls are showing your husband is trailing Hillary 46% to 37% in the African American community. What's going on here?
First of all, I think that that's not going to hold. I'm completely confident. Black America will wake up.
Our rage at the white world needed no object, he seemed to be telling me, no independent confirmation. It could be switched on and off at our pleasure. And yet, even as I imagined myself following Malcolm's call, one line in the book stayed with me. He spoke of a wish he'd once had, the wish that the white blood that ran through him, there by an act of violence, might somehow be expunged.
Well, Nora, something else happened in New Hampshire that we're still analyzing within the Barack Obama campaign. First of all, we're moving on to South Carolina. But there were tears that melted the Granite State. And those tears that Mrs. Clinton cried on that day clearly moved voters. She somehow connected with those voters. But those tears also have to be analyzed. They have to be looked at very, very carefully in light of Katrina, in light of other things that Mrs. Clinton did not cry for, particularly as we head to South Carolina, where 45% of African Americans will participate in the Democratic contest, and they see real hope in Barack Obama.
That hate hadn't gone away. It formed a counter-narrative, buried deep within each person, and at the center of which stood white people, some cruel, some ignorant, sometimes a single face, sometimes just a faceless image of a system claiming power over our lives.
I can no more disown him than I can disown my white grandmother, a woman who helped raise me, a woman who sacrificed again and again for me, a woman who loves me as much as she loves anything in this world, but a woman who once confessed her fear of black men who passed her by on the street.
I took her into the other room and asked her what had happened. A man asked me for money yesterday, while I was waiting for the bus. That's all? Her lips pursed with irritation. He was very aggressive, Barry. Very aggressive. I gave him $1 and he kept asking. If the bus hadn't come, I think he might have hit me over the head.
The point I was making was not that my grandmother harbors any racial animosity. She doesn't. Right. But she is a typical white person who, if she sees somebody on the street that she doesn't know, there's a reaction that's been bred into our experiences that don't go away and that sometimes come out in the wrong way.
Actually, he's right, I said. It is a racist book. The way Conrad sees it, Africa's the cesspool of the world, black folks are savages, and any contact with them breeds infection. Regina blew on her coffee. So why are you reading it? Because it's assigned. I paused, not sure if I should go on. And because the book teaches me things, I said. About white people, I mean. See, the book's not really about Africa, or black people, It's about the man who wrote it. The European, the American, a particular way of looking at the world. If you can keep your distance, it's all there in what's said and what's left unsaid. So I read the book to help me understand what it is that makes white people so afraid. Their demons, the way ideas get twisted around. It helps me understand how people learn to hate. Black politicians less gifted than Harold discovered what white politicians had known for a very long time, that race baiting could make up for a host of limitations. A steady attack on the white race, the constant recitation of black people's brutal experience in this country, served as the ballast that could prevent the ideas of personal and communal responsibility from tipping into an ocean of despair. Yes, the nationalists would say, whites are responsible for your sorry state, not any inherent flaws in you.
No, no, no. Not God bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible.
Afterward, in the parking lot, I sat in my car and thumbed through a silver brochure that I'd picked up in the reception area. It contained a set of guiding principles, a black value system, it said, that the congregation had adopted in 1979. At the top of the list was a commitment to God, who will give us the strength to give up prayerful pacifism and become black Christian activists, soldiers for black freedom and the dignity of all humankind.
Hillary was not a black boy raised in a single-parent home. Barack was. Barack knows what it means to be a black man living in a country and a culture that is controlled by rich white people. Hillary can never know that. Hillary ain't never been called a nigger.
There was one particular passage, though, in Trinity's brochure that stood out. A commandment more self-conscious in its tone, requiring greater elaboration. A disavowal of the pursuit of middle-classness, the heading read.
Lied about inventing the HIV virus as a means of genocide against people of color. The government lied.
It is this world, a world where cruise ships throw away more food in a day than most residents of Port-au-Prince see in a year, where white folks' greed runs a world in need, apartheid in one hemisphere, apathy in another hemisphere. That's the world on which hope sits.
Did you know that he had made these statements before the videotape appeared?
You know, frankly, I didn't. I wasn't in church during the time that these statements were made.
There is a man here who can take this country in a new direction.
And so it went, a meditation on a fallen world. While the boys next to me doodled on their church bulletin, Reverend Wright spoke of Sharpsville and Hiroshima, the callousness of policymakers in the White House and in the State House.
Yes, Shanklin, Pennsylvania happened to us, and so did the Sharpsville massacre happen to us. A government-sponsored religiosity makes you suffer from amnesia. We bombed Hiroshima, we bombed Nagasaki, and we nuked far more than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon, and we never batted an eye.
Most of the time, when I'm in church, he's talking about Jesus, God, faith, values.